They thought they could do no wrong until an innocent man was killed.
It came out of nowhere. I know.
What they do next will divide friends and alter destinies.
You can't imagine the price for true evil.
An all-new Buffy.
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Slade, the Buffyverse Revisited. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Jeremy.
I'm your other host, James, and I'll take you to the docks.
Oh, okay. We are visiting the docks this week again.
We are visiting the docks. That's why I thought it would be apropos to bring that back briefly.
Yes, it looks as though absolutely nothing changed on that set.
No.
Everything was reused. But yes, we will be breaststroking into season 3, episode 15 this week, Consequences.
Consequences for what do you think? What do you think?
I don't know. Maybe did somebody maybe shoplift or something? Maybe I don't know.
I mean, there was some shoplifting in last.
Oh, there was.
episode.
That was last week's episode. Yeah. There was some shoplifting.
So maybe that's what it is.
Twice.
Right. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's consequences.
It's got to be that. It's got to be that. I don't know what else it could possibly be.
Yeah. I don't know.
So James, how are you, man? What's new and how's it shaking?
I'm all right. Nothing really new, and it's shaking up and down mostly.
Oh, okay. All right. We'll address the elephant in the room. You seem to be in a much more well illuminated area this week.
You know what's funny? I'm in a white room, but there are
black curtains.
Yeah, there with black curtains, and there is not a single light on in this room right now.
Wow. It looks like you're sitting on the surface of the sun.
And yet somehow it is better illuminated than the room I was previously in, which had a light shining directly on me. So
wow.
Yeah.
Well, the Lord has seen fit to bring his light upon you.
Yeah. I think it's just there's very little light peeking around the curtains, plus the white walls, I think, is what's doing it. I did have the curtains open completely before, and this is what happens.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't want that. We don't want that.
Yeah. Because even right now, it kind of looks like you're in one of those TV shows or movies where you're like in the afterlife. The room is like just white, huge area.
Right. Okay. So the truth is, I have died.
You have died. Okay.
I have died. But I knew we needed to finish the podcast.
Right.
So
See,
I will be podcasting from the afterlife going forward.
If either of us pass away before this podcast is completed, we have promised each other that we will return from the afterlife, and we will poltergeist cast.
Mm-hmm.
Call it a poltercast.
It'll be right.
Because we can't leave shit unfinished.
Nope, not at all. Not at all.
That would be just.
How about you, Jeremy? How are things? What's new? How's it shaking?
It's shaking, man. It's shaking bacon. I helped. No, everything's cool. Everything's nothing new. Same shit, different day. You know what they say. I figure any day that you're, still above ground, you're winning.
Yeah.
Tiger's blood, baby.
Tiger's blood.
So why don't we talk about? Do we have anything to talk? Or I should say, do we have anything to talk about from last week's episode?
Yes, actually. Well, not specific to last week's episode, but I do want to give a shout out to Deanna. I'm not sure how to pronounce it. She is our latest YouTube subscriber.
Okay.
So shout out to her. Thank you for joining us. Don't know if you've been a listener from the beginning or if you just found us, but either way, thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. And we got an email from someone identifying themselves just as RK.
Okay.
And this
Not,
is
it's not R. Kelly, is it?
I don't think it's R. Kelly.
Okay, surely he doesn't have access to email within Chomo Prison, does he?
I don't know. So RK says, hey guys, just want to say a big thank you for putting this podcast together. I am a longtime Buffy fan and have recently been listening through all of the rewatch podcasts. I enjoy all the podcasts and love hearing all the different takes 20 years later. The Woke Canadians were my favorite Buffy podcasters before I found yours, but now I have a new immortal Blood of Kings podcast. Wink.
Wink, wink. Hey.
You guys are fucking hilarious and occasionally also have valuable insights on the show.
Occasionally.
It's
true, but it's true.
When I first read that, I had to put my phone down and just laugh for like 5 minutes. He's like, right.
It's a little bit. It's a little bit of shade, but it's
right.
It's really true.
It's a backhanded compliment. He's like, hey, you guys are pretty fucking funny, and once in a while you say some smart shit. You know,
once in a while something comes out of your mouth that's not ridiculous, which is pretty fucking accurate.
It is. It's accurate. It's accurate. I disagree with the majority of your takes. I think Buffy is one of the worst characters on the show and loves Xander. So I'm going to be a hard sell for most podcasts.
Oh.
But you guys bring such a great energy to the task, and I am eternally grateful for you guys for doing this. Looking forward to Angel and then Highlander Revisited in 2025. All the best,
maybe.
All the best, RK. So thank you for the email, RK.
Absolutely.
We appreciate you listening.
And I think we're hard on Xander because we know from his own mouth that Joss Whedon basically based Xander on himself.
And we know what a piece of shit.
Yeah, we really hate Joss Whedon, so that's all about.
This is something else that came up in a now, just to briefly touch on it, and the person deleted the comments, so I don't want to delve too heavy into it. But in last week's episode, there was a comment left about how the person said they don't see why we give Xander so much hate. They like the character, they like the comic relief that the character brings.
Sure, see that.
And that's fine. I'm not here to, we're certainly not here to belittle anybody's choice of favorite or not favorite characters.
There's plenty of characters for everybody to choose,
Exactly. And to go back to that point of the Xander hate, I do think part of it is retrospective. Like, we know he's Joss's insert character. We know Joss is a piece of shit. So that automatically taints Xander.
Yeah, because I'll be perfectly honest. Back in the day, I loved Xander,
and I think
he was very much like I was at that age.
And here's where I'm going to delve a little bit deeper into it. I think even without the knowledge that Xander is Joss Whedon's insert character, I think the benefit of 25 plus years of growing and learning and maturing, or maybe not the benefit of, however you want to look at it, and going back and rewatching the show, because I'm like you, Xander was, in my opinion, hysterical. He was, not my favorite character on the show ever.
No, he was never my favorite, but I very
much liked the character in my original watch. But I think 25 plus years of growing and maturing and learning, I think now going back and rewatching it and seeing Xander and seeing who Xander is, I see a lot of myself in Xander, myself at that age.
Left behind, yeah.
And things that I have certainly, over the course of the last 20, 25, plus years have learned was not acceptable.
Yeah.
Was not a good person to be so to speak. Not that I was ever a bad person, but
Yeah, but not. Yeah, and let me throw this in there really quick. You know, this was the 90s. Things were different then. And
Sure.
I think maybe we're a little hard on him. I think sometimes we don't take into consideration that it was the 90s, and let's face it, at least for me, I was just like that. And that was perfectly fine and acceptable back then. And, you know, and I think we maybe just don't take that into consideration as much. Maybe we
Right.
should. I think, for me at least, I think it just all boils down to the fact that he's Joss's insert character, and I hate Joss so much. And
Right.
I should, but I can't. I just can't look past that.
Right.
I
Right.
should.
I think
Can't.
and I agree. Like I said, I think part of it is the fact that we now know he's Joss's insert character and we know what a piece of shit Joss is. Um, but I do think a big part of it is seeing a lot of myself at that age in Xander
Yeah.
and who Xander is. And like I said, having the benefit of 20 plus years of growing and maturing and being retrospective and introspective to realize that yes, it was a different time, but it was also, not acceptable. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
You know,
It was just the norm.
right.
Doesn't mean it was right. It was
Right.
just That's
Exactly.
just how the world was in the 90s, and here we
So
are.
so from my perspective, that's where a lot of personally my Xander dislike comes from
Yeah.
is,
You always hate seeing pieces of your former self that you no longer carry with you in someone else or something else.
sure.
And I
Es-
see so much of myself in the old Xander character that I'm like, I just don't like this guy. And what
Right.
I'm really saying is, I did not like myself at that age. No,
Exactly.
when I
Exactly.
look back.
Right. And I do think that's a big part of it. Um, Now to RK's comment about feeling that Buffy's the worst character on the show, I don't listen. I'm not going to disagree.
No, I was gonna say I'm not really gonna disagree.
I'm not going to disagree.
I,
Like, listen, do I love Buffy? Yes, I love
yes,
Buffy as a character.
yeah.
I
And Sarah
think,
Michelle Gellar as
and
the
Sarah
actress
Michelle
is
Gellar
just, oh my man.
knocks. Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Does that mean the character is without flaw? Does that mean the
Oh,
character isn't sometimes the literal worst to her friends and loved ones?
yeah.
100%.
Yep.
100%.
But I think that's one of the things that it makes her, and this is true for all of them, all the characters. It makes her real. It makes her,
It's part of what.
those flaws, and those, like, sometimes where you just want to slap the shit out of her. That's
Right.
what makes her real and makes her grounded in reality, I guess I should say.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's not
100.
perfect by
It,
far.
it's 100% a big part of what makes the character so relatable. Yeah.
And honestly, in this episode in particular that we're about to review, there's a lot in here that where I just want to say, Buffy, fuck off. Why are you being so fucking judgy and judgmental? And I mean,
Right.
on the flip side, yes, she is trying to help, and she really wants to help and all that. But at the same time, it's like, cool your fucking jets. You're far from fucking perfect here.
Right.
We've seen lots of your horse shit through the last 3 seasons. So,
Right.
oh,
And something else I want to touch on briefly, sort of related to last week's episode, is another comment that was left as part of the comments that were deleted was that Faith's actions in the last episode didn't hold much weight to that person. And this person,
killing the guy, you mean?
yes,
Okay.
and like the um the turn that the character took, so to speak, in that episode.
Okay.
And I'm touching on it now because that turn is more prevalent by the end of this episode.
Oh yeah.
Um, but in watching this episode and watching next week's episode, what this person said about not really caring about Faith or what's happening with Faith,
Mhm.
it resonated with me because you might recall up until like throughout this season so far, I've been saying they're not utilizing Faith enough. They're it's it you know this and that and the other thing. And in rewatching it, I realized that my uh my complaints about them not using Faith enough um boils down to, and I couldn't put my finger on it at first, does boil down to this turn in Bad Girls and the follow-up, the furtherance of that turn, so to speak, here in Consequences. And that commenter was right. I don't know. They didn't utilize Faith enough up to this point for a first-time viewer to really give a shit that this is
Oh yeah.
happening.
Oh yeah. You had to have been a watcher from the beginning, um,
But
to
see,
even feel anything.
but I don't I even that I don't think is the case because this person that left this comment is she's going through the show the first time. This is her first time watching the show.
Oh, okay.
So she's been watching from the beginning. Um and
So in other words, you're saying the underutilization of Faith has made it to where when we get to this point in the story, it's like
you have a
it's
hard time
powerful.
caring.
It's not powerful enough because she's been so underutilized.
Exactly.
I can totally relate and understand that.
And
I agree. She should have been much more prominent this season.
and it wasn't
and-
it go ahead, I'm sorry.
no. You see what I'm saying is,
Right.
yeah, I
And
agree.
it wasn't until that comment was made about how like I'm just having trouble caring about Faith that I
Yeah.
kind of realized my issue with Faith being underutilized, aside from the fact that I'm absolutely in love with Eliza Dushku, um, is that this isn't the Angel to Angelus turn
Right.
in
Yeah,
season
exactly.
2.
Yeah,
Like
that was a
that
gut punch.
that was a gut punch.
Yeah, and this is more like a, well, that kind of sucks, but do I really care?
Exactly.
But
And it 100% boils down to the fact that they did not utilize the character enough leading up to this. She's not an integral part of the Scooby Gang. She's not been an integral part of the goings ons of their lives and the show up until this point.
right. Agreed. 100%. And I think, but judging by what's to come in Buffy and also Angel, I think they learned that lesson. I think they probably saw that. I think they probably, I don't know if Joss himself, but the writers and producers and whatnot, I think, because she becomes much more important later on. And then you do start caring about Faith and
Right.
what's
Right.
going on with her and whatnot. And you do feel her struggles and whatnot. And you have empathy for the character. Whereas at this point, 100% right. The commenter and you, you're kind of like, well, I'm supposed to care because this is part of the show, but
I kind of
honestly,
don't.
I kind of don't. It's kind of
Right.
like, whatever, whatever happens. But,
Right.
and like I said, I think they learned that lesson. I think,
And I think going through a rewatch, it
mhm,
does, to kind of allude to what you just said. Going through a rewatch, I think the impact of this happening hits harder going through a rewatch than it does doing a first time watch because rewatching it, we do know what's to come.
that, and we're also, by doing a podcast about this, we are watching the episodes I think much more intensely
Right.
and with much more intent as to break things apart and break things down and figure out everybody's motivations and whatnot.
Exactly.
Whereas I think, you're watching something through the first time, you're just enraptured and, oh, I love this fucking show, and
Right.
things happen, you're like, holy shit. But yeah, 20, 25 years later, we're like, let's see, we've seen her what 4 times this season.
Right,
and
exactly.
do we really care?
Right. So
I mean, we've already gotten more. This will be what is this? This will be the 3rd episode. Today will be the 3rd episode that we've even seen Wesley, right?
second episode.
Okay, so last week was his introduction. Okay, I couldn't remember. And I feel like we already know more about him and his motivations and what makes him tick than we do Faith. And Faith has been since the beginning of the season, in and out.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah,
and it was funny. Like I vividly, like I remember saying up to this point as we've been doing this podcast, like they're not using Eliza enough. They're not utilizing Faith enough. I wish they would use Faith more. And there was part of me that couldn't figure out like why is that my takeaway? Like, aside from the fact that retrospectively, I know how much I like the character. I'm like,
Right.
but why is it bothering me so much? And it wasn't until this person pointed out that, she was just like, I'm just kind of having a hard time caring about Faith. That's why I've had so much issue with the underutilization of the character so far, is because when we get to this point in the season now, how are we supposed to care?
Right. Yeah.
So.
And it's like, basically, it comes to the point of, there should have been. I mean, this is Monday morning quarterback stuff here, and hindsight being 2020. But the whole season every episode should have had at least a thread of a B plot in it with Faith, as far as what's going on with her head space. We know she's had this fucked up kind of childhood, and then the whole, there should have been a subplot in basically every episode with keeping her to not the forefront, but keeping her in the viewer's mind.
Right.
And you're seeing little things where you're like, damn, that's fucked up, or wow, okay. And then when this happened last episode, and then this episode, maybe
more impactful.
Would have been more impactful. Yeah, people would have been more like, whoa.
And I'm 100% agree with you on that. From episode 1, season 3, there should have been a B through plot in every episode that fleshed out Faith more, whether it was her overall personality, her background, and 100%, even maybe more important than the other two, her developing relationship to our main cast.
Right. Whether good or bad, it still something needed to be there, and there just wasn't enough.
Right. So
she'd only be there on episodes where, okay, we can fit Faith in here.
Exactly.
And let's do it because of that, let's have it mean something.
Right. And even then, sometimes when she was squeezed in, I remember saying in at least one episode, Faith was completely unnecessary.
Yeah, she would have just a few throwaway lines, and if she was involved in the
the A plot,
the conclusion of the story and the fight or something, she would just kind of be there, and then it's like, okay, well, have a good day, Faith, see you later, go live in your nasty motel.
Exactly.
None of us are even going to invite you to come and live with us or anything, and get out of this filthy flea fucking bag motel. But
so but that's all I have. Before we get started, do you have anything?
No, other than to say thank you everyone for contacting us, and we love that.
We do.
We get more of it,
Yes, because
it's good to have feedback, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent.
Right. And as you can see from the last few episodes and this one, it does enable us to kind of delve a little bit deeper into
things that we might not have even thought about.
The episode that, obviously you're always going to be commenting on the episode that we did last. So if, even if we can take, 30 minutes or so at the beginning of the next episode to kind of, address that and talk about that and kind of, rehash some things or mention things we hadn't thought about. That's great for us. We love that.
Yeah, because as brilliant as you and I both are, even we can't think of everything,
exactly,
even with our massive brains.
100%. And it will oftentimes bring up things that we've thought about but haven't said, like RK's comment that he thinks Buffy's the worst character on the show. I don't know that she's necessarily the worst character in my humble opinion, but is she kind of like not a great person? Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, frankly, I think the worst. I've said this. I believe I don't know. I'd have to go back. I think I've said this from the beginning. I think the worst character on the show is Joyce.
Yeah,
I really
we've
do.
said that from the beginning. I do
Uh,
too. And a big part of that goes to kind of like the same faith issue here. Like they want us to care about Joyce as Buffy's mom, but they've really done nothing to help flesh that out.
no, and when they have, it's always been shitty. It's like,
Right.
really, this is the episode you're going to focus a bunch on Joyce, and you're just basically going to show us how terrible of a mother and a person she is.
Right.
Come on, come on.
Exactly. Exactly.
But I digress.
So all that being said, yes, to reiterate what Jeremy said, please keep the comments and the emails and whatnot coming. We definitely look forward to it every week. But without further ado, let's revisit Buffy the Vampire Slayer season 3, episode 15, our 49th episode of the series overall. Consequences. Our episode director this week is Michael Gershman. Our episode credited writer this week is Marty Noxon. Our original air date was February 16th, 1999. 3 days before my birthday.
Oh my.
And it originally aired, of course, on the now defunct WB network. We pulled in a Nielsen rating of 4.1 million households when it first aired, ranking it 88th out of the 122 network primetime shows airing that week and third out of the 15 shows airing on the WB that week. Our regular cast, as always, includes Sarah Michelle Gellar as Buffy, Nicholas Brendan as Xander, Allison Hannigan as Willow, Charisma Carpenter as Cordelia, David Boreanaz as Angel, Seth Green as Oz, who does not make an appearance in this episode, and it is the only episode this season in which a member of the main regular cast does not appear. And Anthony Stewart Head as Giles. Our guest stars this week include Eliza Dushku as Faith, Christine Sutherland as Joyce, Harry Groner as Mayor Richard Wilkins, K. Todd Freeman as Mr. Trick, Alexis Denisoff as Wesley Wyndham Price, and James G. McDonald as Detective Stein. My episode synopsis this week reads, while Buffy is tormented by the consequences of Faith's heedless act, the mayor is gleeful about the prospect of imprisoning a slayer for murder.
Okay, well, I'll be honest. I think that my synopsis this week is the worst one I've had since we began this show.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's very brief, but I think it's just very well. I'll let you be the judge. A homicide detective closes in on Buffy and Faith as he investigates the deputy mayor's death.
Okay.
That was literally 5 minutes in the episode.
It was. Yeah, that's true.
And the detective does not seem to be all that good at his job, frankly.
No,
And,
I mean, we've seen Detective Stein a couple other times.
I know,
the
and
show.
he's always appeared to be very inept and kind of I don't know, like Barney Miller.
Yeah. All right. Let's dive into our cold open. We open underwater, and we come to realize that it's Buffy, and she is frantically trying to get to the surface of the water, and we see below her is Deputy Mayor Allen, who grabs her by the leg and starts to pull her down. And she's kicking and flailing and, trying to get loose. And she manages to break free from him, and she gets to the surface. And as she gets to the surface and takes in a deep breath, we see that Faith is kneeling on a dock above Buffy, and Faith proceeds to reach down and shove her back under the water. And we cut to Buffy's room as she wakes up from her nightmare. And she kind of calms herself down as she realizes it was all a dream, and sits up and looks around her room and crawls out of bed. And we hear that there's news playing on a TV. And she follows the sound, and it takes her to her mother's room where Joyce is watching TV, and they're reporting on the how they found the body of Deputy Mayor Alan Finch. And um, we see the mayor, and he's talking about how Finch wasn't just his longtime aide and associate, but he was also a close personal friend. And he promises that whoever did this will be brought to justice. And Joyce finally notices Buffy standing behind her, and she makes a comment about how terrible it is. And Buffy just stands there staring blankly at the television, and we cut to credits. That is our cold open.
I want to do a little commenting on a couple of things in the cold open.
Sure.
First of all, now that I'm thinking about it, let's apply the Faith, the kind of do I really care thing. Let's apply that to the deputy mayor. Do we really even fucking care that this guy got killed?
Exactly. I mean,
he's basically just been this really squirrely little shitbag that, sucks up to the mayor, and I don't know. I'm just saying. You would.
Right.
I don't know.
I think it kind of goes back to, I think we're supposed to care simply because he was a human.
Yeah.
That got killed. And I think
I'm sorry.
And I think we're supposed to care that Faith did it because Faith is a good guy, and Faith accidentally killed a human being that she didn't know was a bad guy. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know. I think as a viewer, first time or otherwise, I think that's flimsy reasoning.
It is, especially since this show from day one has basically taught us that not all, but a good majority of the humans in Sunnydale are shitbags and right. Probably deserve to be stabbed. And
right. So in the case of Deputy Mayor Allen, I don't think we're necessarily supposed to care that Faith killed him, because obviously we know he was a bad guy. Mm-hmm. I think we're supposed to care that Faith killed a quote unquote innocent man,
and doesn't seem to care. Yeah. Oh, I get that. It's just it's very flimsy.
It is flimsy because as the audience, first time viewer or not, we know that Deputy Mayor Allen was a shitbag.
Yeah.
So I really don't care that Faith killed him. Like, he was a bad guy. We kill bad guys.
And it was an accident.
Right, and it was an accident.
Which is what which I have to bring up a lot in this episode, because it seems like everybody's going after Faith like she was a cold-blooded, calculating murderer who went out and stalked this guy in the alley at night, right. And then, it's like, no, they were in the heat of a battle. Like, if this had happened to Buffy, they would have been like, well, heat of the battle, accidents happen, let's go have some fucking ice cream, But it's Faith, so they're like, oh, Faith, you evil fucking bitch, you. And right. I don't know. Anyway, we'll bring that up as the time comes. But right. There was something else I wanted to bring up about that cold open, and I don't remember what it was because I'm old and my memory is the shits. So we will just go on ahead. Would you like me to kick in now, or?
Yeah, go ahead, jump in.
All right. Well, we cut back to the show, and we are now in the library. And Wesley's being his pompous self as always, and he is ordering that Buffy and Faith investigate this killing of the deputy mayor. And of course, Buffy, knowing, what actually happened and everything, she's like, really? Is this something like, this should be the the human thing. The human laws should be doing this. Like, we're about, the supernatural and whatnot. And Giles agrees, and he's like, yeah, I just don't think that this is a good use of the Slayers. Blah blah blah. And Wesley's like, well, I didn't fucking ask your opinion. And I'm like, oh fuck, somebody punch him just right in the fucking heart. Like, oh
Wesley refers to himself as their commander.
yeah, he is now their commander. Even though last week's episode we saw that he is utterly useless in the face of any type of battle.
Right.
Which probably most commanders are that way. So then he basically, he's gonna make him investigate this deal. And they're getting ready to leave when Cordelia comes in. And Wesley is just full fucking chub. And I mean, he can't talk, he's stuttering and blah 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 blah, and because she's looking for a psych book, Freud and Jung, and so for class obviously, and so Giles goes off to find her the book and everything, and she's talking to Wesley, and he's like, oh, and you teach psychology? And she's like, no, I take psychology. And Giles walks by and he's like, she's a student. And he immediately lets go of her hand. And he's like, da, da, da. But he's still clearly all about some Cordelia. And at one point, Faith says 2 words, jail and bait. And but anyway, yeah, she does her Cordelia charm to him and leaves, and he's completely fucked up.
Which do we know that Cordelia is jailbait? I mean, it's their senior year of high school. She could be 18 already.
That's true. That's true. I don't know what the laws are in California, but
just saying. It's
California, so it's probably like 11. So, I mean, so I'm just saying. Wow. No, no, I'm just teasing. She leaves and yada yada, and the Slayers head out to, I believe they said to patrol, and then I was like, wait a minute, isn't this the middle of the day? Because Cordelia's coming in to get a book for class.
Right.
And I don't know, like, why are they going out to patrol? It's like the middle of the day.
Yeah, I don't remember where they were going.
And I don't even know. I don't know. Sometimes the timeline, the time frame in these episodes is kind of wonky, and I'm like, okay, I guess it's supposed to be evening or night, but it's clearly the middle of the fucking day. I don't know. So anyway, Faith actually bails, and so Buffy goes to go after her to to try to talk to her or whatever, and she catches up with her, and she's wanting, obviously Buffy wants her to come clean. They need to go to Giles and explain the whole thing, and blah blah blah. Of course, Faith ain't having none of that. Because she's like, we were both involved, so if I go down, you're going down too. And Buffy's like, if I was Buffy, I would have been like, well, fuck you, I didn't stab anybody.
Right.
You're the only one that stabbed a motherfucker to death. I was just standing there like, yo, don't do that. Okay, you did that.
Right. At that point, I would have been like, oh, you're clearly threatening me. I'm going to the cops.
Yeah, I'm going to the police immediately because I am completely in it. The only guilt I have in this whole thing is that I haven't told on you sooner. So anyway, so then they go their separate ways, and Buffy heads back. I believe she headed back inside the school, correct?
I think so.
Yeah, and she sees Willow, and she sits down to try to talk with Willow, but Willow hasn't even told Buffy what's wrong with her, but she's very short with her, and she's just kind of like, basically she's just like, yeah, I gotta go see you. And Buffy's like, okay, because she still hasn't come. Willow still hasn't explained to her that in last week's episode when she, wouldn't let Willow go with them and whatnot, and she just went with Faith, that really hurt Willow. So Willow's kind of short with her and like not mean to her, but just kind of short. And then she's like, well, I gotta go, and then so they split, and she actually, as she's leaving, she actually throws a Molotov cocktail over her shoulder at Buffy, and it's like, wow, that's a little passive aggressive.
I did like that Willow mentioned that they're still trying to de-rat Amy.
Yeah. Oh, that's what she said. She had to go meet what's his face, the warlock, because
Michael,
they're trying to de-rat Amy. Yeah.
Yeah. I just like that pops up, that creeps up every once in a while.
Yeah.
Like, we're still,
and it will until there's actually a resolution to that situation. But I like how they keep, like you said, I like how they keep it every now and then. They're like, oh yeah, Amy's still a fucking rat.
Yep.
And so anyway, we cut to the mayor's office, and Wilkins is shredding papers, and he's very unhappy because normally using the shredder makes him happy, but it's not making him happy right now. And Mr. Trick is like, okay, you're fucking weird. I can't believe I'm even working for you. I mean, that has to be what he's thinking in his head. But yeah, Wilkins is like, what's his last name? Filch?
Finch.
Filch, whatever. He's like, why isn't Mr. Felcher, why did why did he keep so many papers, like such a trail to our, what we've been doing? And he's like, do you think he was going to betray me? And Finch is like, I don't know. Does a bear shit in the fucking woods? Like, sometimes Mayor Wilkins comes off as a real fucking dope. And I'm like, how have you managed to do the things that we will discover you have done for so long? And you're clearly not the best judge of fucking. You know what I'm saying? But Trick's like, here, maybe this'll cheer you up, and he tosses some papers down to him, and Wilkins is like, I'm sorry, I can't read. And, no, but he's like, what's this? And Trick is like, well, it's I'm assuming, he doesn't say exactly what it is, but I'm assuming it's the police reports and whatnot on the investigation into the murder.
Right.
And I'm like, how the fuck did he just get this? Because it's like it's not even copies. It's like he walked into the police station and just like took their investigation folder. He's like, hey, I work for the mayor. And there's, and
this is mine now.
Yeah, I'm just taking this now. But the mayor's reading it, and he's like, yeah, it's I guess it's autopsy. One of them's an autopsy report, and he's like, and it shows that there were splinters of wood inside of Felcher's heart, and blah blah blah. So he's like, ta-da! It was the fucking Slayers, or one of them at least, and
which honestly is a hell of a fucking leap to make.
That's a fucking hell of a leap, man. Yes, I thought the same thing. I mean, I was like, I'll go with it for purpose of the story, but wow, is that a leap?
Right. Like,
first of all, what's the likelihood that like splinters, that was a like baby butt smooth fucking steak she had, and I'm like, what's the chances that it like had splinters come off of it that lodged in his heart, So, but we'll go with it for purposes of storytelling here. But so Wilkins is like, yeah, that does make me happy because then we could put both of the fucking. And I'm like, wait a minute, why does everybody keep saying for the rest of this episode, like, oh, the Slayers, both of the Slayers? I'm like, they couldn't both have fucking staked the guy. Only one person could have staked the guy, but anyway, he's like, yeah, they can go up for murder one, and we can put, both of the Slayers away, and they'll be out of our hair. So yeah, that does make me happy. And then he actually gives Flick, he gives him a lollipop. He's like, thank you, Flick. You've made me. No, I'm fucking making that up. But he probably should have. That would fit into Wilkins' fucking weird personality.
It would have.
Like a lollipop made of like congealed blood, I could see Wilkins doing that. Like,
I could see Wilkins pulling out like one of those old safety pops.
yeah, but it has to be made of blood.
No, I think it would fit better with the character if it was just like a regular lollipop,
And
and he
he's
was
like,
just like, "Here, good work, Mr. Trick. Here you go."
this trick is like, but I can't taste human stuff. And he's like, yeah, but still eat it anyway because I'm Wilkins.
Do you think that's accurate? Do you think vampires can't taste human food?
Well, I would assume all of their organs and shit are dead and rotted. So I would assume taste buds, their sense of smell. I'm sure they have a sense of smell because they can smell prey and whatnot. But I mean, I would think it's at a completely different spectrum than ours. I don't know. I just always assumed the human world would be tasteless to them other than eating actual fucking humans.
Okay.
I don't
Okay.
know. Something I've always thought in my head. Maybe I'm weird. So where did I leave off? Yes. So later that night, Buffy and Faith are trying to stab each other.
You missed a brief scene of Detective Stein questioning a woman.
Oh yeah, in the alleyway.
Yeah.
You're right. My bad.
So I'll do it real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we cut to the alleyway that same night, and Detective Stein's questioning a woman, and she claims to have heard a man scream the night before.
Which, hang on, pause.
He didn't scream.
Okay,
He
thank
did
you.
not scream.
Because I thought, wait a minute, they are talking about Felcher, right?
Finch. Yes, they are.
But they are talking about him. Okay, so I'm like,
Right.
at no point did he even say? He didn't even say a word, any words, did he?
No. Just
Yeah, okay.
if I remember correctly, the only sounds he made were gurgling noises as his lungs filled with his own blood.
Yeah, and it was not loud. It wasn't like a loud.
No.
It was just like,
No.
But somehow this lady.
Right. It was.
was
He sounded
really
like he was.
in an alley.
It sounded like he was quietly deep throating.
Oh. Oh, okay.
He was like.
Okay. And you're familiar with those
I watch a lot of porn.
Alrighty then. But yes, go on.
There's other cops around gathering evidence, and then
hang on, one more thing. Did you see the one cop? Okay, wait. Up against the dumpster where Felcher died, and his blood is like on the dumpster there. What was that cop doing with that like metal? It was like a metal spatula, and he was like, it looked like he was kind of like, I wasn't sure what he was doing. Like he was kind of scraping blood and putting it into a baggie.
Oh,
like, did you happen to note? Like, I was like, what is?
I mean, I noticed it. I just
assumed.
I noticed it. I just assumed they were gathering blood samples.
Well, but whenever you see that out, normally, they have like those long swabs, and they're swabbing the blood, and they'll put them into like individual. He had like this metal spatula. Seriously.
No, I know. Yeah,
it was like scooping the blood and putting it into this like gallon Ziploc baggie. Just the blood, not the spatula. I was like, what in the? You show up to the lab with that, and they're going to be like, what? Did you go to the Sesame Street Cop Academy? What is wrong with you? You ever heard of a fucking Q-tip? I don't know.
Listen, the Sunnydale Police Department is just run different. Okay.
Yes, they are very like none of the. I want to imagine that none of the police in Sunnydale's PD are actually trained in any way. Like they'll just hire them and be like, "Listen, you're a cop now, and you go do cop things."
You're a police. You're a police now.
You are now a police. I want you to go out and police.
Right. And that's how they say it too. They're like, you're not an officer. They don't say you're a cop or you're an officer. They just say you're now police. Go police.
You're now a police.
No, and they don't even say a. They're just like, you're police now.
You're police now.
You're police.
And listen, the likelihood is you won't survive long. Our cops are killed and slaughtered left and right, and we never investigate it. Ever.
Right. So yeah, he's interrogating this or questioning this lady, and other cops are gathering evidence, and someone's watching from the shadows,
Yeah.
and it's Angel.
No, it's not. Mm-mm.
It's
just it's Tammy.
It's Tammy, the vampire slayer.
It's Tammy the vampire slayer, because you can see the end of her cigarette lit up. That's all you can really see in the dark.
Right. She
And then
takes
you
a
feel
big
a little bit of that smoker's cough. She's like,
because it cuts to the shadows, and
Right.
you're like, why the hell are we watching the shadows? And then she takes a drag, and you see the butt of her cigarette light up, and it illuminates her face.
Yep.
And then you
Yep. You
and
see all the pock marks on her skin. And
right. And then all you hear from the shadows is, what did my girlies get up to now? What
Jesus H. Christ.
Jesus H. Christ, what did they do? Oh my God, this is so bad. This is so bad.
And who's standing right behind her?
Her watcher.
Her watcher named.
I don't remember.
I can't either. God damn it.
Rufus.
Rufus. That's it. Rufus.
Yes.
Was it Rufus?
I think it was Rufus. Yes.
Okay, we'll just go with that. Yeah.
Right. And
so
he's
Rufus is standing there, and remember, he has a heroin addiction.
Right.
So
and
he's not scratching himself and looking around, and he's like, "Yeah, what did they do? Do you know where I could get?"
But also he's only smart enough to draw crude stick figures. He doesn't even talk in full sentences.
That's right.
So he's standing there, he's scratching himself, but he's also drooling.
Yeah, he has a chalkboard that he wears like around his neck with colored chalk that he scribbles with to get his messages.
And like you hear him frantically tapping on the board.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's tapping Tammy's shoulder, and she turns around and it shows the picture, and it's a crude stick figure drawing of presumably Faith and Buffy staking Deputy Mayor Finch. And Tammy's like, yeah, looks like it, Roofy. Looks like they done killed that man. It's not good. It's not looking good.
Yep. But we might get a promotion.
Right. But I could be the #1 Slayer finally, and you could be the Watcher.
Yep.
Yeah. No, it's Angel. And he's watching the goings on, and he sees the blood on the dumpster, and then he flashes back to running into Buffy the night before and remembers the blood on her hands.
And at that time, he had just assumed she had started her period. And that she had to quickly insert a tampon, and that she had gotten a little spritz on her hand. Now it's putting it together.
Right.
That's
Angel's he's detecting things.
He is beginning to sleuth.
He is sleuthing and detecting right now.
He may even be at the gumshoe level at this point.
Right. Yeah. It's weird. He's just
weird.
He's just out of the blue detecting things.
Yeah, like used to, he would just barely could just not eat people, just keep himself from not eating people.
Right.
But now he's like, you know what? You know what this world needs? Magnum PI Vampire Edition. And
it needs a remake of Forever Night.
Yeah, one that's not horrific.
So yes, then we cut to later that night with Buffy and Faith, and what are they doing, Jeremy? I'll let you pick it up.
Well, for whatever reason, they're starting a fire in the mayor's office. I guess they just decided, fuck it. If we killed a guy, let's just burn the mayor's fucking offices down and kill everyone inside, including the mayor. Even though up to this point, they have no idea that the mayor is a bad guy.
Right.
But they just decided, fuck it, he's got to go. If we off everybody in the mayor's office,
things will be okay.
Yeah, everything will be fine.
Yeah.
Because they're gonna burn down the police station next. So they figure, we'll just kill all the authority in Sunnydale and shouldn't have a problem.
Everything will be hunky dory.
Yeah, I mean, they can just take over, basically.
Yeah. Sure.
No, they're sneaking into Felcher's office there at the city hall. I guess they never discussed it before this, that they were going to do this, but I guess they have decided to do this, or I should say, I guess Buffy has decided to do this in the hopes of finding something to explain why he was in that alley that night. So they're talking as they're digging. Of course, Faith is just. We should mention that, like with every scene that Faith is in, she just seems to double and triple and quadruple down on the fact that fuck it, I don't even care. You know, this guy was in the wrong place at the wrong time. You know, which honestly, at that age, and I was a Slayer, I would probably be thinking saying the same shit. I'd be like, listen, I didn't go out of my way to kill this fucking guy. He showed up while we were literally fighting for our lives, and vampires were just jumping down off walls and shit, and he got staked. I'm sorry, but it's not like I fucking, went out of my way and like planned to kill this guy. So
and on top of that, to like further the circumstances of it, how is she supposed to explain why she had a wooden stake in a dark alley to the authorities?
And why wouldn't they be like, why did you choose to stab this guy with a piece of wood?
Right.
Sunnydale has existed for 273 years, and we've had a lot of murders. We've never had a motherfucker stabbed with wood.
Right.
Like, what's with that? And she could be like, I don't know.
Right, but like, my point is, like, Buffy's all about, you need to turn yourself in, you need to turn yourself in. Like, that's fine and dandy. Like, so she goes to the police and she's like, hey, I accidentally drove this sharp piece of wood through the deputy mayor's heart. Well, of course, then the next logical question is, well, why did you have a sharp piece of wood, and why were you in that alley where the deputy mayor was in the first place? You see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do. Also, I just thought of something. Last episode, she said she had taken the body, weighted it down, and dumped it in whatever, the water.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
Did I miss something in this episode where they said that like it had surfaced and they found it, or?
No, I don't recall them saying in the news piece how they had found the body, just that they had found it.
Oh, they did say that they had found.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I thought, oh, wait a minute. I think I just found a huge fucking hole in this fucking episode. But
no.
So in other words, Faith is not very good at disposing of bodies.
No.
Because if she weighted it down and dropped it in the water, no one should have fucking found it.
It's right.
Like, even if you had rudimentary skills and like, I've never had to weight a body down and dispose of it, but
it's not easy.
I guarantee you I could do it and it wouldn't be found that quickly. Like maybe a year later it might, but like the next day they find it. Like, what? Wow. You need to go back to Slayer school to body disposal 101 because fuck, you're not good at this. But anyway, where did we leave off?
They're in the
mayor's office. They're in Felcher's office and trying to find something to explain why he was in the. Buffy's convinced that he was there on purpose, that he was trying to reach out to them.
Mm-hmm.
Again, a leap. I don't know. They do so many leaps in this episode. It's like, and it's not just leaping, but it's always leaping to the correct answer.
Right.
Like, let's see. 1 and 2 equals 11. Oh, because that must be the answer. It's like,
right.
What?
And then when you divide that by cat, you get the Slayer kid did this.
You get potato.
Right.
When you divide it by cat. So and then, Faith says something like, well, what makes you think that, what makes you think he had anything to hide? Well, Buffy happens to open this drawer in his desk, and all of the files are empty.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow that proves her point. See, there is paper missing from these folders.
Right.
So clearly he was in some dirty shit and he was trying to come and tell us about it.
Which I thought was fun. I thought was funny too, as another big leap to like this backs up what I was saying. Like all of these file folders have been cleared out. Listen, I could take you into another part of this house right now where I have a filing cabinet that I haven't moved out of this house yet,
Mm-hmm.
and pull it open, and there's a drawer full of empty file folders.
Yes.
It does not mean I disposed of any illegal evidence.
Right. I have this. I could do the same thing. I have a filing cabinet as well that I could show you. And it's not like these file folders were labeled like secret bad guy stuff.
Right.
Things to show to slayers.
Right.
And
they weren't even file folders. They were like the hanging sleeves that you would put file folders in.
Right.
Which is exactly what I have in two of the 4 drawers of my filing cabinets that are empty. But it's just the hanging sleeves that you would put the folders in. It doesn't mean I got rid of 2 drawers full of illegal
illegal evidence to your shady dealings.
Right. It doesn't mean I didn't do that either, but it doesn't mean that I did.
Right. So we're in a conundrum now. Is James in fact an evil sorcerer or an innocent paralegal? You decide.
Or am I an evil paralegal and an innocent sorcerer?
I like that.
It's hard to say.
They somehow that proves her point. So they go to head out with nothing, by the way. They didn't take anything to like they didn't find like a smoking gun and be like, here's this letter he wrote that said, "Dear evil Mr. Wilkins, I'm going to turn on you." They had nothing, but they're leaving. And as they come out the door, they see another door down the hall open up, and it's Mayor Wilkins and Mr. Trick, who they know, Mr. Trick, and then he's a vampire. They now see him with Mayor Wilkins, and for the first time, they now know that Mayor Wilkins is in league with Lucifer.
He is in cahoots with the devil.
He is. And he says something, well, we need to turn the heat up and make blah, 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 blah. So just an evil little line that he says. So now they're like, oh, dun, dun, dun. Mayor Wilkins is evil, which we've, of course, known since, I think, the first episode he was introduced.
Right. But now our main cast knows it.
Yeah, so they duck back in really quick to hide while Wilkins and Mr. Trick walk by and exit the premises. Buffy, when they duck back in there, Buffy's kind of she's concerned that Faith just seems to be just completely guilt-free. Her conscience is not bothering her at all. And Faith is just like, yo, I'm fine, I don't have any issues. And she says something along the lines of, who we are and what we are puts us above the law. And we've been chosen to be better than others, and we don't have to obey the same rules and whatnot. And Buffy's just like, okay, you went from accidentally killing this dude in an alley to all of a sudden you are like full tilt crazy. Like you haven't even you went from A to Z really quick.
Record time.
Like in a day or two. She just is like, you know what? I did kill a guy. I think I'm just gonna go full blown nuts now.
Right. I accidentally murdered a man. I don't really care that I did it. Obviously the next logical step is evil.
Yes. I should be the new big bad. Who will see that coming?
Right.
Anyway. So Buffy bails to head home, and she gets there and gets to the front door, and what happens there, James?
She opens the door, but it's hot to the touch.
Mm-hmm.
But she manages to get it open, and there's just a raging inferno inside.
Yeah, and she gets hit with a backdraft.
Right, and she gets up and she starts screaming. She's like, "Mom, Mom!" And then all of a sudden, Joyce who's completely engulfed in flames, stumbles out the door and just collapses on the porch.
Yeah, her hair is all burned away. Her flesh is she looks like Freddy Krueger.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, I never wanted to have kids. And then she collapses and dies.
Yep.
And Buffy's like, wow, that's a fucked up thing to say right before you die.
In front of me, right
So
before you die, horrifically in front of me.
So she kicks her and she's like, fuck it. And she doesn't even care.
Yeah. It was a weird scene in the episode. It didn't
really
fit.
Weird.
It didn't fit at all.
It's like A to Q back to L. I don't know. It's really weird.
No, she gets home and Detective Stein's waiting for her, and he's questioning her, and him questioning her is intercut with him questioning Faith, and it's clear that like Buffy and Faith never even considered like
getting their stories
getting a story straight or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Basically Detective Stein encourages both of them to come clean if they know anything. Basically, tells them both, if you're covering for someone, don't. And, Faith's all like, me cover for someone? I'm not a throw myself on the sword kind of person, this and that.
You should have turned it around on him and been like, what are you asking us this for? We saw you there that night.
Right.
Fuck him all up. He went, what? No, what? No, I what?
Right. Faith if Faith in particular should have been like covering for someone. You mean like you, whom I saw in that alley that night?
And I could actually even say what you were wearing that night, because it was probably the same exact thing he's wearing now.
And I watched while you plunged a piece of wood into another man's heart.
And you said to him, you'll never tell about our relationship, as you were doing it.
Right. Yeah. You mean covering for that person, Detective Stein?
Detective Stein.
And then he would have been like,
here's my card. Don't call me. And then he just leaves quickly, never to return or be seen again.
Again, we see Angel, and he's kind of hanging out in the shadows outside Faith's room, outside her hotel room, and watches Detective Stein leave.
I'd like to say something briefly. I know I have said this in previous episodes and whatnot, but what the fuck is wrong with fucking Joyce letting this fucking cop in there? Okay, especially now that she knows Buffy is the Slayer,
right?
And does all these supernatural things. What the fuck is she doing letting a cop come in their house? I know I've harped on this before. Any lawyer worth their weight, other cops will tell you, don't ever talk to cops about it. You don't talk ever. You say nothing. Shut the fuck up and you don't talk. I would have said, oh, you're here to see my underage daughter about something. Fuck you. Get the fuck out of my house. Come back when you have a warrant.
Right.
Especially now that she knows Buffy is a supernatural superhero who does not need scrutiny and being questioned by this douchebag cop.
Right. Unfortunately, we are still in an age, and this kind of goes back to the like, maybe we have to cut Xander a little bit of slack because quote unquote times were different. We're still in an age of television where cops and the police in general weren't really scrutinized on TV. And
we're always assumed to be the good guy.
And the prevailing mentality was cooperate with the police. The police are there to help you. And that's bullshit.
Yes,
that's 100% bullshit. Yeah. I'm going to let everyone in on a little secret right now. The police, in any capacity, are not there to help you. They are never there to help you. You know what the police are there to do? The police are there to close a fucking case.
And by any means, and I mean any means necessary.
And that was what my next line was going to be. And by any means necessary. As long as they can close that case, that's all they're looking to do.
They will fuck you north, south, east, and west,
up and
twice on
down and
Sunday,
side to side.
if
Yes.
that means that they can close that case and be done with it. Yes. And that's why you never, even a traffic cop, don't answer any fucking thing a traffic cop asks. Don't even say, if he says, how is your day going? Just be like, it's a day, you know, give me my ticket and fuck off. That's all you're entitled to do, you know?
Yep.
But anyway, Joyce has let this fucking cop in who's my supernatural daughter. She really shouldn't be scrutinized. Come on in, Detective Dildo, and sit here and fucking pressure my daughter into telling you. So, like, and not one time does mom pipe up and be like, yo, you know what? This fucking interrogation is now over. Get the fuck out of my house and don't ever come back here again unless you have a fucking warrant.
Right.
But no, she just stands there like over his shoulder, like, yeah, Buffy, where were you? Oh, I don't know, Mom. I was killing demons. You know, you want to discuss that with Officer Friendly here?
Right.
I don't know. Sorry, I didn't mean to go on that long.
No, that's all right. That's all right. So then we cut to Willow's place, and she's in her bedroom messing around on her computator, and
her Commodore 64.
and Buffy shows up saying she needs to talk, and Willow says she also needs to talk, and she's been letting things fester. She wants to be fester free, and
I love Willow.
And she proceeds to just lay into Buffy about what a shitty friend Buffy's been lately.
But really not, though. She's really not laying into. She's laying into her in Willow terms, which is very nice and soft.
Right. And Buffy starts to cry, and Willow thinks it's because of her, and she starts to apologize, and saying that she's a bad person for making Buffy cry, and this and that, and Buffy proceeds to give Willow the entire 411 about what's happened, and Willow kind of
she is the first person that anyone had. She's the first person at all that knows, except for that knows within the Scoobs.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I'm going to throw this back to what RK said in his email. This is kind of an example of what we were saying. Is it Buffy being the worst character on the show? I don't know. Is it Buffy being not a good friend to Willow? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. She has shown this before. And we know that pre-Slayer Buffy was Cordelia.
Right.
So it's not that much of a stretch.
Like, this scene is kind of a good encapsulation of that. Like, Buffy's been blowing Willow off for, we're not even really sure how long, to like
at least a couple of weeks probably.
Right. To like do things with Faith and go slaying with Faith, and she's been all like, you really shouldn't be coming with us, you're in danger, blah blah blah. But now, like, Buffy needs something, Buffy needs to vent, Buffy needs a shoulder to lean on, and she goes to Willow after kind of not being a good friend.
And isn't it odd? I think I've brought this up before. I could be wrong, but isn't it odd how Willow has French doors in her bedroom?
It is odd. It is
okay, because normally you only see that like in like a master bedroom.
Right. My only conclusion is that for whatever reason her parents gave her the master bedroom.
That's possible. And also usually they don't go out onto like the first, like that's only like if you have like an upstairs master bedroom and they go out onto like a little balcony or something. Normally you don't have French doors that are on the ground level right into your bedroom, right? Am I right? Am I wrong?
No, I've seen it before.
Oh, okay.
I've seen it before.
Just seems
on
strange
homes,
but it just seems very convenient that this is a place where Willow can have her friends come late at night and just knock her own door.
Right.
And we know that Willow has her own phone line also, so
right.
She's very trusted.
So Willow ends up kind of stressing to Buffy that she needs to tell Giles what's going on. And then we cut to the library where Buffy is, and Giles comes out of his office, and Buffy starts to tell Giles what has happened. And then Faith comes out of Giles's office, and Buffy kind of stammers a little bit and instead says that she's been ditching class, and uh, Faith interrupts her and tells her that it's okay, and um, uh, uh, Faith tells Buffy it's okay. She told Giles everything, and Buffy's like, "Oh, you told him?" And Faith is like, "Well, yeah, I had to tell him. You killed someone."
God, I would have saw like I would have been so pissed at that very moment. I would have probably like lunged for her throat.
Right. So Faith has told Giles that Buffy killed Deputy Mayor Alan Finch.
And Giles is pissed.
Giles is clearly not happy and orders Buffy into his office and tells Faith to leave. And
in his office, you can see that he's already set up a torture device. And that's how pissed off he is. He's gonna the rack. He's gonna like, oh boy,
right.
Or Buffy.
And Buffy starts to try and like, no, this isn't what. And Giles yells at her. He's like, that's enough. Get into my office now. So Faith leaves, and once Giles is certain she's gone, he tells Buffy that he didn't believe what Faith had told him. Yeah. She's not a good liar, but
he's got a very weird line right here that was almost a little creepy. He says, how does he say it? Despite her having many different skills, lying is not one of them. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute.
I think he says like, despite her many talents, lying's not
many talents. That's it. Like that. She's not good at lying. And I was like, whoa, what's her many? Whoa, somebody wrote some slash fic. They did.
Listen,
you already know it.
Listen, Giles hit.
You think?
Giles hit.
Okay. What about Buffy? Do you think there was something there, or
with Giles and Buffy?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay. What about Snyder, Principal Snyder? I'm talking Giles and Snyder.
100%. Why do you think there was so much animosity between them?
I remember when he said, "Would you?" He's like, "Well, what are you gonna make me?" And he's like, "Would you like me to?" And I was like,
Right.
That was the beginning. That was the beginning of a scene that was hashed out in some slash fic.
Well, that's why there was so much animosity between them. Snyder is a scorned lover.
Hey, speaking of which, when's the last time we saw Snyder?
Oh, it's been a while. It's been a while.
Like a while. Like within the first 3 episodes of the season? Like it's been a long time. Huh. I wonder when we'll see him again. Anyway, James is texting. I'll go ahead and
no. So I got a text. My sister's like, just to sidetrack, she's like, what do I need to see what's on a floppy disk? I just found 3 of Dad's old floppy disks. Like
a floppy drive?
Right, a floppy disk drive
from 1998.
That's right. I haven't responded.
Because even if you found a floppy drive, you're not likely to find a motherboard that's got a fucking floppy drive fucking connector in it. So
I don't even know if they still sell USB.
Oh yeah, you can buy them on Amazon right now probably.
Anyway. So yeah, he's like, I didn't believe her, but we should humor her, and he tells her that this
Wait a minute, pause. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I apologize. You should have texted her back and say whatever her name is. I'm not going to say it on a podcast, but so-and-so, you might not want to look at those. You might find some shit you wish you hadn't found. Just FYI. Anyway.
No, I'll probably be like, the first thing you're gonna need is a time machine.
And the second thing you're gonna need is why? Just why? There's probably nothing on there but like fucking tax returns or something, you know.
I would bet dollars to donuts that it's just pictures. Just
Well, I'm trying to
no, not those kind of pictures.
floppy. Hey, let's not forget floppy porn. Everybody had some floppy porn.
I doubt it's those kind of pictures.
And it would take like 5 minutes to load one picture.
Right.
Like,
we've talked about this before.
But I mean off a floppy drive.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So Giles tells Buffy that this isn't the first time this sort of accident has happened.
Right. And this is the first time I'm like, thank you. Finally, somebody is saying the obvious that I've been wondering in my head the whole episode. Like, this can't be the first. Like, everybody's acting like this is this huge, unbelievable thing that's occurred. And I'm like, wait a minute. The Slayers have existed since mankind has existed, which we'll come to find that out in later seasons. And you're telling me this is the first time there's been somebody caught in some crossfire and like, you know what I mean? It's like,
right.
Why is this being made into? I get it because she's not accepting responsibility and whatnot. But let's say she had accepted responsibility and been like, oh, this is terrible. They can make this go away.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that's what he does. He proceeds to tell her that the council would typically get involved and there would be some sort of trial and, you know, appropriate reprimands would be handed out. And he tells her that he doesn't have any intention of getting the council involved.
Which I'm like, well, that's good because they probably won't talk to you.
Right.
They won't even take his calls. So,
and then we see that Wesley is outside of Giles's office.
And he has clothes on
he's completely naked.
And they don't show it on screen, but you can see his arm moving. And you're like, oh, what is wrong with this fucking guy? Oh, by the way, that reminds me, I forgot to share the line that Cordelia said way at the beginning of the episode when she first meets Wesley. To me, it was hilarious. She goes, oh, look, it's Giles, the next generation.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, that's pretty fucking good. Sorry. Anyway.
And he's heard everything and he looks pretty upset. And he calls Quentin Travers on the phone.
Who we met, what was that, 4 or 5 episodes ago?
Something like that. Yeah, it was in Helpless.
Yeah. He's a massive douchebag.
And then we cut to the next day. And what's happening the next day, Jeremy?
Well, also really quick, when he calls, have we seen that yet? Yeah, we've seen when he makes the phone.
Yeah, I just talked about it.
Yeah, literally with Quentin Travers. He says he asks for Quentin Travers and says who he is, and I guess the person in the other line says, "What's the passcode?" And he says monkey, and I guess that person says spell it, and he goes MON. Just put him on the line. I'm like, wait a minute, they're just fucking with this guy at this point.
Yeah,
like monkey, spell it.
Right.
Anyway. Yeah, so
which okay, this is something I meant I meant to mention last week, but we can do it now because you just mentioned they're just fucking with this guy. Wesley's appointment as Buffy's new watcher sort of lends credence to my theory that being the Slayer's watcher is like bottom of the rung ladder type shit, buddy. Because he's clearly inexperienced.
Yeah.
As a watcher. Like he's very young.
Mm-hmm.
Like and I'm guessing like he's probably grew up in this. Like he's probably like I've always presumed that
We've discussed this too, that
that
each watcher is kind of like
it's a legacy thing.
Yeah, it's a legacy thing.
Right. And that's what I feel Wesley is. Like he's a legacy watcher.
Well, we know that he is very book smart,
right,
very knowledgeable, demon wise, and
that's fine, and that goes
like spent all of his life researching.
Right, and that goes a long way in being a watcher, 100%. But he's clearly like very new to the council, you know, and whatnot.
In the field.
So this kind of like lends credence to my theory that being the Slayer's watcher is like an entry level gig, which again, doesn't make any fucking sense.
Like that should be the pinnacle of
right. Like that should be like, and I'm not saying it should be like some like old dude who's been with the council for, you know, definitely Quentin Travers should not be the active Slayer's watcher.
No, neither should that big fat guy with the mustache that we meet that actually tells Buffy that she's a Slayer.
Merrick. Yeah. It shouldn't have been Merrick.
But this guy was like, he looked like a math teacher, as we've discussed.
Right. But it should definitely be somebody who's got some heft behind their tenure with the Watchers.
Who could that be? Who would be the perfect? I can't think of anyone.
I don't know. I don't know. Anyway.
Oh, the humanity. Anyway.
So yeah, we're the next day, and you were gonna pick it up from there.
Yeah, it's the next morning, and Buffy's talking with Xander, Willow, and Giles about what they should do with this whole Faith situation. And Xander keeps interjecting himself, you know, saying that, okay, because Buffy and Giles are kind of the opinion that maybe it shouldn't be Buffy, that it, you know, it should be maybe someone else from the Scoobs.
Right.
That Faith might respond better to someone that other than Buffy. And so Xander keeps interjecting himself that he would be the right choice, but they all keep questioning him. They're like, but why would you think that? Like, you've spent the least amount of time with her as any of us, and blah 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 blah. And it finally kind of comes out, and it's it's Buffy, the first one that realizes. She's like, oh, you guys went to Pound Town, and when they all realize that, they're like, oh, okay, but they all still are in agreement that Xander would not be the appropriate choice.
Right. And this is kind of slightly amusing. They're like Buffy's like, oh, and then Giles is like, oh, and then they like look at Willow, and Willow's like, I have to say, oh, I figured it out already.
Yeah.
And like,
and already.
You could tell, like, in watching the scene, like she knew right away.
Yeah, because the way she was moving her eyes and looking at Xander, she was like, oh.
Yeah.
Okay. And so they kind of don't really resolve it in this discussion as to who's gonna do, you know, who's gonna go talk to her. And we cut to this weird scene where it's shortly after this one we cut to the scene where like Willow's in like the girls' bathroom.
Yeah, but before you mention that, let's talk about how Buffy like not emasculates Xander, but she's pretty much like, I don't think it's gonna matter that you and Faith had sex, because Faith doesn't put much stock in that sort of thing. Like, she doesn't take that seriously. Like,
she treats all of these dudes like just throwaway toys.
Exactly. Yeah.
So she's like, basically, you are a human-sized vibrator to her.
Right.
That's all you were, Xander.
But yes, then we have this scene where
really weird scene. It's very quick, but
Willow's in the girls' bathroom crying, and Xander's like kind of laying on the library steps, like looking kind of upset,
all mopey and
right?
bitchy. And I could
Mopey,
only assume that the crying is Willow crying about Xander.
right, right,
That I guess that he lost his virginity to Faith.
right. That
I
he
guess it's
slept
just
with
another
Faith.
reason, another thing for her to hate about Faith,
Right, right.
So anyway, then we cut to Faith's nasty ass fucking motel room door, and what's happening there, Ames J?
She's getting gangbanged by like 15 dudes. Like the hotel door, it's not even a hotel, it's a motel. Let's be honest.
It actually is a motel.
The motel door is just hanging wide open, and like
She is actually the aggressor, though. Like
right,
she is handling all these. Like it's like she's basically making them fuck her.
right, right.
And they are all. A couple of them are crying.
Yeah.
One of them is just shaking and sitting in a corner.
Right.
And she is She is
right.
in charge.
And she like she stops like for a minute to yell at the dude, like the dude in the corner that's shaking and crying, like he's curled up like this. Like she stops giving a blowy to one of the guys, and she looks over at that guy in the corner, and she yells at him, and she's like, "Stop your fucking crying.
Quit being a little bitch
and start jerking it." and he does. I mean,
he's like,
and he's just crying and
crying and jerking at the same time.
Right.
It's really sad, but
yeah,
she is definitely
she's into it.
She is owning all these. She's in charge.
Yeah, 100%. No, we cut to Faith's hotel room and motel room, and she's just chilling. And then there's a knock on her door, and it's Xander, and he comes in, and like he's trying to reason with her and get her to confess what happened, and she's still 100% on the Buffy did it, I didn't, train. And Xander's like, yeah, I heard that version of it, and yada yada, and he's like says he'd be willing to testify on her behalf in court.
And I'm like, wait a minute, when is that how is that a thing? Like, you weren't there. You were an eyewitness. Oh, okay.
Character witnesses are a thing.
Okay.
And Faith saw like, oh, I bet you'd like that, wouldn't you? If you had to get up on the stand under oath and tell all your little friends that I used you or whatever, and
which she did. Let's be clear. He did not fuck her.
No.
She fucked him.
Right.
And let's also be honest.
Lucky son of a bitch.
We know she has a 14-inch strap on in her in the nightstand drawer. That's the only penetration that was going on with Xander. Let's be honest.
I'd still do
it. Oh, righty then.
So she proceeds to throw him on the bed, and she's like, I could do anything I want to you, and she's like, including killing you, basically. And then she starts to strangle him.
Yeah, dude, this shit, it gets intense quickly. We're not talking like a little, like, no, we're. Go ahead.
Like,
did you chub up?
No, if I didn't know better, I would have been like, this is Xander's last fucking episode.
Xander's about to go. Yeah.
Right.
Because she is choking the fuck out of him.
Yeah.
And she has Slayer strength,
Right. And in retrospect, like,
it would have been a pretty cool death.
It would have been. I think
it would have been very profound.
maybe like that would have been much better than having Faith just kill this random dude who was a bad guy anyway.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. Like, imagine she had done this to him the night they fucked, and that's the person who had been killed.
Or even like
Oh.
not even going back that far, but even like keep everything the way it played out, but then like even after she accidentally killed Deputy Mayor Finch, she straight up kills Xander.
Straight up.
Right.
With her bare hands.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like, because kind of to go back to what we were talking about before, like the audience already knows that Deputy Mayor Finch was a bad guy. So why do we care that Faith killed him?
And
like
the answer is we don't.
Right, we don't. Like we're supposed to care that Faith doesn't care that she seemingly killed an innocent human being.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But we know he wasn't really innocent. Was he human? Yeah. Like he was still a bad guy. Why wouldn't we kill him, human or not?
Right.
And now we know that Faith knows he was a bad guy. So at this point, why should Faith care that she killed him?
Right.
I
hear you.
So to escalate that and have Faith murder Xander,
straight up strangle Xander. Yes.
That would have been way more on par with Angel to the Angel to Angelus turn.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it wouldn't have been as much of a kick in the gut, but it would have been up there. It would have been close.
I think it would have been a bigger kick in the gut.
Maybe.
To just straight up strangle Xander to fucking death just out of nowhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like even if they were able to come and like revive him or something, get him to the hospital, and after a long recouping period, he was able to be but like she thought she killed him and she legit tried. Right. Yeah. That would have been a huge fucking. Then we're talking. Okay, now I care. Like,
right.
Like this bitch is killing Scoobies now.
Right. Right. So yeah, she's strangling him, and where am I?
She hears a noise.
Oh yeah, she hears a noise and she looks to the side and
what the fuck? There it is again, dude. I don't get it. I don't know where this always comes from.
Was it outside maybe?
It might have been.
Anyway, it's Angel, and he fucking clocks her with a baseball bat.
With a fucking baseball bat.
With a baseball bat. And then we cut to the mansion, and what's happening at the mansion, Jeremy?
What's happening at the mansion?
Well, time out. Before we go, let's touch on this briefly, because you and I talked about it very, very briefly before we started recording. How do we feel about the fact that Angel was able to get into her motel room?
Well, yeah, and I brought up the fact, and I could be completely fucking wrong here. So, but I brought up the fact that, I don't really want to. We don't want to do spoilers, but
no, but without giving spoilers,
right? Without giving spoilers,
I can say that you brought up the fact that motels are considered more of a public domain.
Right.
A public.
I believe the lore is, at least in this show, is it has to be a private domicile,
right?
In order to stop vampires, because if you recall, they were also scared when her and Xander fled away, weren't they? They were scared vamps were going to come after them then, because I would be like, well, if it was in your own house, you could just be like, well, they can't fucking come in here, so we're good.
Right.
So yeah, I'm going to go with it's public, therefore he didn't have to be invited in.
Right. Okay.
Or as I also said to you, Joss is known for kind of fudging his own lore sometimes in order to move a plot point forward. So it could be that.
And there's something I'm going to bring up when we're done recording, because I just thought about it.
Okay.
That kind of, I guess it could go either way. But so I can 100% get on board with the idea that Angel was able to get into Faith's motel room, because it's a motel, and motel for the most part are public spaces.
Mhm.
You know, same way he'd be able to get into a mall or, you know,
A grocery store,
a grocery store, any building.
hospital where he goes to get his
Right,
blood.
exactly.
Yeah.
The school, you know.
Yeah.
So I can buy that, but there is something I want to bring up in conversation with you when we're done recording that I just thought about. So that kind of might even make you be like, oh, well, that is kind of that's something. But anyway,
Do you think he could get into whorehouses without an invite?
do the whores live at the whorehouse, or do they just work at the whorehouse?
You would assume at the very least, you would assume the madam lives at the whorehouse.
Then I don't know, because and I can't say it right now. Okay, so without spoilers, at some point later on in the Buffyverse, and it happens in an episode that you specifically mentioned in our pre-recording conversation, Angel cannot get into a store that he normally would be able to get into, because the store owner says, and I quote, "I put my bedroll down here."
Yes, you're right.
So he's living in the store.
You are
And
right.
that's why Angel can't get in. Faith is living in this hotel room.
I would argue that she's staying in the hotel room, and I think those might be. I think it might be different. I honestly do, but I don't.
Okay.
I don't know. Who knows?
So
I think it all boils down to Joss Whedon just fudges his lore when he needs to move something forward.
Right. So to your whorehouse point, I think it would boil down to whether or not the whores live there or whether or not they just work there. Can Angel get into the bunny ranch? Probably not, because those whores live there.
Wow.
You would probably have to be invited in.
You know a lot more about that than I do. Do you make a lot of trips out west, James?
You know what? So in the next scene, no, but there was I think it was on HBO. The Bunny Ranch had a reality show on HBO.
Yeah, I do remember here. I think I saw 2 of those. I was going to watch them all, and they were very boring. And I was like, I don't think that
whores aren't as exciting as one might think they are.
Well, I just thought it would be interesting. Like we would see some real shenanigans or something.
You thought thered be more tits and.
Well, I thought there would be, full frontal at the very least.
You thought there'd be more fucking.
Right. Close up penetrations.
Right.
That kind of thing. But all we got was just a bunch of, nonsense. So
right.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're at the mansion, and what's happening there, Jeremy?
Faith kind of wakes up from being fucking K the fuck owed with a Louisville Slugger, and she's chained to the ceiling. I believe it's the same place Angel was chained to when he first returned to our reality.
Yes, I believe.
And it's Angel, and he's got her there, and he's trying. It's kind of a long and in-depth deal here, but we'll cut it short and say he's trying to get through to her. He's obviously going to try to help her. And of course, her answer is, she tries to come on to him. She goes through all her normal little bag of tricks to fuck with people. And at one point, he walks outside into the garden area, and Buffy's out there. So obviously, she has sent Angel to try this. Obviously, Angel was her idea to do this. Xander put himself into it. Luckily, Angel came and saved his dumb ass. At this point, Xander owes Angel his life like 39 times over, so he needs to quit being a dick to Angel. I'm just saying. Um. So yeah, and Buffy's like, well, maybe how about I should go to her motel and get some of her things, and that'll show her that we care, we're willing to help her. And Angel's like, yeah, that's a good idea. And he's like, listen, before you go, I don't want you to get your hopes up. She may be beyond, redemption at this point. And I'm like, is she really? Is this again? I know I brought this up before, but I'm like, she literally accidentally stabbed a guy in the heat of defending her life against vampires. Is this really like have we really decided like, oh, she's really gone down the dark side now? Like,
So
it's not like Anakin Skywalker choosing to go and kill younglings. She accidentally. I don't know. I don't know.
I
Go
get what you're saying. But I don't think it's the actual act of accidentally killing this guy that everybody is focusing on. I think it's the lack of caring and remorse on Faith's part in the aftermath of it.
Yeah, but I feel like that's all just a mask. Like, she's obviously. I don't believe that for a moment that this never that she really feels it. I just don't. I don't buy it. It's a shield. It's a cover. And I'm like, really? Like, because he even says to Buffy,
But
he's like, "Oh, go ahead."
let me ask you, do you feel that way because you're watching the show retrospectively?
Possibly, if I'm being honest, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I
You
think
might be right. But he says, but he says to Buffy, he's like, listen, now she's had a taste for it. Yeah, of taking a life. And I'm like, really? I don't know. I don't know. It just seems to me like that several of like basically everybody is blowing this out of proportion at this point. Like, okay, she accidentally killed a guy. We know it was an accident. Everybody agrees on that.
right.
Okay, and now she's acting like it doesn't bother her and blah 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 blah. Obviously she's traumatized and she's in shock or something, and this is how she's dealing with it, by pretending like it doesn't bother her and fuck it and all that stuff. But is she really beyond redemption? I don't know. I don't know I don't know that there's enough evidence at this point, enough anything to make a decision one way or the other. Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? Like, we haven't even attempted to begin to try to help her, get through to her and
Right.
analyze her here. But
And like I said, I get what you're saying, but I think I think the fact that we're revisiting this retrospectively does cloud our judgment a little bit.
sure.
And two, I think you're focusing more on the actual act of having accidentally killed Deputy Mayor Finch,
As opposed to not feeling the guilt
as opposed to her not feeling any guilt or remorse or anything after the fact.
But see, I always think back to that scene where she goes back to the body in last episode, and she's clearly fucking like traumatized by it, and she goes to touch it and she jerks her hand back, and I'm like, this is a fucking shield she's put up.
But see, we also disagreed about that scene. If you remember, you took it as like, kind of what you just said. And I took it more as like she went back to see if it made her feel anything. And it didn't. Remember?
Could be.
Remember, we
Yeah.
had talked about that. And that's still how I take that scene is she went back. She was like, shit, I killed this guy and I don't really feel bad about it. And she doubled back to get a look at what she had done and was like, oh, I still don't really care that I did this.
You could be right, my friend. You could be right.
Right. I mean, you could too. I mean, it could go either way, really.
Yeah.
But But
Well,
it
obviously, I think the show bores out to lean more towards my favor. But again, that's retrospect.
right,
Yeah.
right.
But anyway, oh, I'm sorry. Do you have something
No,
else?
no. Go ahead.
Okay. So
Oh, I did want to mention when we first open on this scene and we cut to Angel. Angel's just chilling, like he's just sitting there, like examining the bat.
yeah, he's like, wow, this actually worked pretty well.
I don't know why. I just thought it was
my
funny.
code all the time now. I'll
Right,
just use this all the time.
right.
So yeah, Buffy goes ahead and leaves, and we cut to City Hall, and Wilkins, Mayor Wilkins, and Flick, God damn it, Trick are standing there watching surveillance video, and they see the Slayers from earlier breaking in, and the mayor's fucking pissed, and he's like, yeah, well, now they know. It's all out now. They know I'm in, with you, and so now they're gonna know everything. And Trick is like, well, they won't be much of a problem when they're in fucking jail. And Mayor Wilkins is like, we don't have near enough of anything to put either one of them away. And lack of evidence. And he's like, so Mr. Trick, you're gonna need to take care of this, and you better do it fucking soon. And so Trick's like, or what? What are you going to do to me, you fucking putz? But anyway, that's what I was thinking in my head, at least. We cut back to Angels trying to get through to Faith some more, and they're going back and forth. And, it seems like he's starting to get somewhere with her. Not a lot, but, it seems like he's kind of chipping away at her little shell there. And he's like, listen, you don't have to go into the darkness. I've been there, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden the door gets kicked in, and he runs to meet whoever it is. And it's like 4, 5, 6 guys led by Wesley, who is holding a fucking cross out to him. And of course, so he backs up, and then they all dive on Angel, and they're fucking like beating his ass with fucking tire irons. And they got him down the ground, and they're all just pounding the shit out of him. And then they throw this big net on him and kind of just like tie him all up and shit. And while they're doing that, Wesley heads over to Faith, and he unhooks her. And then he immediately puts some different cuffs on her. And he's like, I don't know what he says, by the power vested in me, by fucking.
Yeah, he says by the order of the Watchers Council of Britain.
Yeah, I'm gonna take you.
As opposed to the Watchers Council of like El Salvador.
Idaho. Yeah. So he's like, you're gonna go back to England, and you'll face trial and possibly any consequences of what you've done, basically. And I'm like, why didn't she just immediately pull away from him and just be like, no, I'll fucking beat all of your asses. I'm a slayer. I'm a superhuman.
Here's 2 things I thought about.
Okay.
1,
maybe she likes being handcuffed.
Right. Oh, she definitely likes being handcuffed. At least in every fantasy I've had. So do I, by the way.
Oh, hang on. I'm gonna write that down so I can remember. Okay, go ahead.
Here's the 2 things I thought about in that scene. 1, and we've talked about this in the past, how when things happen in episodes, it raises questions in other episodes. Why didn't the council come prepared with the adrenal suppressant that takes away a slayer's powers?
Yeah.
To apprehend this slayer.
Or maybe even a stun gun?
Right.
They just have tire irons.
Right. 2, why didn't they stake Angel?
Yeah. Good question. I never even thought about that.
They're,
why would they allow him to live? He's just a vampire.
Right. He's a vampire.
Yeah. He's game, they're yeah.
Wesley's met him once. And granted, he did save Wesley's life that one time.
But he's still a vampire.
He met him, but he's still a vampire.
Yeah.
Why? It's fucking stake.
They know who he is.
Yeah.
They know what he did the previous season
Right.
Yeah, you're absolutely 100% right, and I hadn't even thought about that. But yeah, and then again, then why the fuck didn't Faith just be like, yeah, no, I'm not going anywhere with you, and literally none of you can make me.
Right. Like
And then just walks away, and they're
she
just
could
like, oh, fuck.
literally kick Wesley's jaw off, clear off.
Yeah. Well, she has these handcuffs on that have like this long chain between them that he
Right.
just put onto her. She could literally just wrap it around his and snap, done.
Yeah.
And then be like, anybody else want some? And they'd be like, oh fuck no. And she's like, that's what I thought. Key. And she takes them off, and then she moonwalks out of the mansion.
Right.
And there's nothing they can do.
Right.
But for whatever reason, she goes with them. And she's kind of struggling against them, like kind of pulling, and I'm like, what is this? But anyway, they get her into this we cut from there as them leaving the mansion into the back of this looks like a bread truck. And it's her, it's Wesley, and it's unnamed watcher number 33. And they're riding, and she's now chained down to a little D-ring that's like welded to the seat next to her there. Apparently they do a lot of prisoner transportation since they have this truck already ready to go. And she's trying to get him to let her go, and she starts kind of prying at that D-ring there, and he's like, no, none of that. And then she says, sacrificial watcher, tighten her restraints, please. And so he goes over there to her, and she immediately fucking houses him. He's down on the ground. She puts her foot like on his jaw, kind of turns his head sideways, and she's like, now take these fucking, or she doesn't say fucking, but she's like, take these cuffs off, or I'm gonna pop his head like a fucking grape. Well, she doesn't say fucking. And so Wesley just immediately stands up and pulls the keys out of his pocket. Doesn't even try to, like, had it been me, I'd have been like, do it. Go ahead and do it. Then you will never, and I mean never, see the light of day again. Because then the full might of the Watchers Council will come down on you, Slayer or not, and we will lock you away in a deep, dark hole, and you will never see the fucking light of day again. So go ahead. Call her fucking bluff. But no, he immediately stands up, fishes out the keys, unhooks her, says something, Faith, you can't keep running. She fucking houses him, and she's like, yeah, that's where you're wrong. And then she headbutts him into unconsciousness, kicks the back of the doors, jumps out, boom, she's gone. So once again, this is now the second time in a row that we have seen how completely ineffective Wesley is in all things.
That's what I'm saying. Like, again, like being the Slayer's watcher is like entry level watcher bullshit.
Yeah, but
like there might be
was good at his job.
Who?
I said Giles was good at his job.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, I've said this before, the only reason Giles got to be the Slayer's watcher, even though he might have been more tenured, is because they didn't like him.
Yeah, they didn't like him because he was not a conformist.
Right.
Yeah. So they're like, fuck it, send him to watch the Slayer then.
Right.
He's a dick.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah, like it's not the glorified position within the Watchers Council that it should be.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. By the way, because I can't recall at any point in the rest of this series or in Angel, do we find out who the Slayer was directly before Buffy?
We've talked about this. Yes.
Oh, have we?
Her name was Indigo.
Okay. And who was her? Did we find out who her watcher was? Was it in fact the goofy guy with the math teacher with the mustache?
No. Why don't you go ahead and continue, and I'll pull up the information again.
Yeah. So then Buffy's returning to the mansion with the thing she had went to collect of Faith's, and sees that Angel's in a big net and completely immobilized, unstaked, as you say. Then shortly thereafter, Giles, Xander, and Willow get to the mansion, and basically they're talking about everything that's just happened. They're trying to formulate a plan on what to do. They're like, listen, we got to save her. We can't let them take her back to England. You know, she won't be treated fairly, blah, 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 blah. And you see a shot of Xander at this point, and he looks like he has been hung with a fucking, like an old West fucking.
Like noose.
Yeah, like noosed. I mean, his shit is fucked up.
Yeah.
And, you know, Willow brings up, and she's basically saying what everybody else is thinking, probably at home. She goes, wait, why are we doing this? And she starts listing off all the fucked up things she's done from the beginning up to literally almost killing Xander. And she's like, so maybe, because she's like, what will the Watchers do to her in the worst case scenario? And Giles is like, we'll probably lock her away for a very long time. And Willow goes, well, maybe she needs to be behind bars. Yeah, and I'm like, yes. Hello.
Yeah. Thanks for being the voice. Yeah. Thanks for being the voice of reason here, Willow. Yeah. Willow Danielle Rosenberg.
Like, I still think she's not irredeemable, but at this point, she's kind of proven that she's dangerous. Yes, we do need to, for lack of a better term, we need to immobilize her somewhere.
Right.
Negate her powers and try to get, reach her. And Willow's like, of course, as normal, the only voice of fucking reason. But oh no, nobody wants to hear of that. And about that time, Wesley walks in, and he's all black and blue, and he's like, well, you don't need to save her now because she's already out there free. She kicked my ass, and yeah, blah, blah, blah. And they're all like, none of them are surprised. And so Buffy's like, okay, we got to find her. Buffy's like, I'm going to go to the docks. She sends Giles to her motel room. She tells Xander and Buffy, or Xander and Willow. She should have said, Xander, Willow, stay the fuck out of this because this bitch is crazy and she'll kill you. But instead, she says, where does she send them to? I forget. She sends them somewhere, and she's like, but be careful. And I'm like, be careful? Nothing. Get a fucking 45 before you go. And then Angel says, well, I'll go to the airport. And I'm like, yeah, why? Faith has no money. How is she going to fly anywhere, Angel? So we cut to Buffy showing up at the docks, and she's been taken to the docks. And as she walks by the ship that's docked there, see, hence docks, Faith comes out and says, well, you don't give up, do you? And Buffy's like, not on my friends. And Faith has a good line here, which is true. She's like, when have we ever been that close? Like, honestly, when have you ever treated me like anything other than a day player who has a shitty contract and isn't in most of the episodes?
Right. Which again, it's like, it's a perfect in episode call out to what we started off this episode of the podcast talking about. Like, yeah. Faith hasn't been around enough for us to care about any of this.
Yeah. And Buffy's like, no, that's not true. And Faith is like, yeah, actually, it pretty much is exactly true. And she's like, she comes down and Buffy's like, I'm not doing this. And she starts walking away, and Faith's following her. She's like, no, you just don't like it because I live my own life, by my own terms, and you can see that in yourself, and you're da-da-da. And Buffy's like, no. Well, then all of a sudden, rawr, vamp attack, karate fight, karate fight. They're fighting a bunch of vamps. Faith is fighting like 2 or 3 basically at the same time, whereas I'm sorry, I skipped a very important part. As they're walking, excuse me, Buffy looks up and sees, for some reason, there's a large amount of crates being held above their head on a crane, and they are falling towards them. So she shoves Faith out of the way, and the crates fall on Buffy, kind of immobilizing her. And at that point, that's when the vamps attack.
Rawr.
And, raw, baby. So,
you want a little nibble? You want a little bite?
Basil, this tastes like shit. It is shit, Austin. Oh, Sorry. So Buffy's immobilized and Faith is fighting like 2 or 3 of them. She's holding her own pretty well. Buffy's struggling to get out from underneath these crates. She finally does, and Trick is on her. And Trick is fucking her shit up. Like, he's pretty much manhandling Buffy, throwing her around. And at some point he wraps is it his tie or is it this other, it's some type of material, and he wraps it around her neck.
Yeah, I think it was his tie, but I'm not 100% sure.
And then he starts, throwing her around, and then he basically has her. At this point, we see Faith has thrown one of the vampires into the water, and then she stakes one, and then fights the other one a little bit, and then stakes it. I'm sorry. And we see. Wow, sorry guys, I'm having a little bit of I'm a little verklempt here. He basically Trick has Buffy at this point, and he's like, so I hear that how does he say that? I hear that once you've ate Slayer, you never go back.
Yeah.
And so he goes in for the bite and the kill, and you hear thunk behind him, the sound of being staked, and he goes, oh no, oh, that isn't good. And then he's dusted. And I was like, no, I love Trick. Mr. Trick is my favorite. But anyway, R.I.P.
Did
Trick is dead.
Did your balls retract back up into your abdomen when Trick got staked?
They actually did.
I'm sorry.
Now. Yeah.
Sorry, buddy.
But yeah, Trick is dead. Faith saved the Buffster. And we cut to I think it's the library. You can't really.
Yeah, it's the library.
Library, yeah. And Buffy's explaining to Giles what had happened, and he's like, and she's like, she tells Giles, she's like, well, she saved me. She could have just, took off, and I'd be dead. She's like, and he's like, well, that's good. That's a good sign. And she's like, yeah. And he's like, and she came back to town with you too. She's like, yeah. And he goes, well, that's another good sign. And Buffy's like, I'm not going to give up on her, Giles. I'm going to reach her. I'm going to help her. And Giles says, well, then I think she has a really good chance. And then we cut to the mayor's office, and Wilkins is finishing up for the day. He tosses his shit in his briefcase and heads to his office door and opens it up. And who is it? It's Faith.
It's Faith.
And it's like, oh shit, she's going to fucking kill the goddamn mayor. Well, not knowing she can't. And she says, so you sent your boy after me to kill me? And he's like, yes, I did. And she's like, well, he's dust. And the mayor's like, well, I gathered that since you're standing here and he's not. And she said, so.
I laughed so hard at that. I don't know why. Like,
Yeah,
it was just funny as fuck.
Yeah. And she says, so I guess you have a job opening then. And the mayor's like, So he takes a step back and lets her come into his office and closes the door, and credits.
Before we get into everything else, real quick, to answer your question, and we have already talked about this before, the Slayer directly preceding Buffy was a young lady by the name of India Cohen. She was born in North Carolina in 1978, and she died in May of 96 in California. Her watcher's name was Christopher Botwell, who
yes, Christopher, yes.
who was nicknamed Kit. They fell in love, remember?
Ooh.
And
I don't
her
know any of this, honestly.
Her family was murdered by mummies. You don't remember any of this?
Nope.
Wow.
I think maybe you told someone else this stuff.
No, we talked about it here on the podcast.
Okay, well, I am old and I have a bad memory, so.
No monsterology this week. I mean, obviously vampires, good guy turning evil. Like, I mean, it's a trope that's probably existed since stories were being told, and we've seen it not countless times, but we've seen it numerous times already in this show. So, Our body count this week, only 3. 2 vampires and, well, 3 vampires, including...
Possibly another vampire, the one she threw in the water, if he doesn't know how to swim.
True.
He never does. Notice he never does come up.
And of course, the untimely demise of one Mr. Trick, R.I.P. Mr. Trick. We hardly knew you, but we loved you.
And such a good actor, and I really liked him. I wish he'd have been a long-term part of the Buffyverse. I really do.
Our music this week, Wish We Never Met by Kathleen Willoit from the album Pitch Like a Girl, released by BMG Records in 1997. Jeremy.
Yes, James.
Will you please give me your final thoughts and rate this episode out of how many dead Mr. Tricks?
I think we're gonna. I could be wrong, but I think we're gonna disagree on this episode, James.
Okay.
I'm giving it a 3.
Okay.
You know, a lot of the things that I brought up during the recap, there's just a lot of problems with this episode, in my opinion. You know, a lot of leaping, to the correct answer every time, where you're like, what? No. To me, there was just a lot of problems with this episode. I can't go above a 3. Even though I like it, I like the episode. It's certainly, these last 7 episodes or so are going to be awesome of this season. Probably some of my favorite stuff, in the Buffy, or on her show at least. And so I do like the episode, but I can't go above a 3. It's just, there's too many problems and too many things. Like, even if you don't want to consider them problems, it's still too many things that just bug me. And I just can't go above a 3. A lot of things that should have been done differently. A lot of things that, as we have discussed, that, Faith should have been made a much more important character prior to doing this with her. It's kind of a miss. Even though I like the episode, it's kind of a miss. And then it loses a half point at least just for killing off Mr. Trick, because I love Mr. Trick. I always have and I always will. For this episode, one of the only big redeeming things is Wilkins. He's such a good character. He's so fucking funny and evil. He's just a great character, and he's one of the saving graces of this episode. Again, even though I like it, it's very problematic.
Yeah.
So I can't go above a 3, and that's all I got to say about that. So James,
I'm curious before you answer, what do you think I'm gonna rate it? Because you said you think we're gonna disagree.
I kind of had a feeling that you were going to go high on this one.
Okay.
I'm not saying a 5, but I'm just saying I figured you would go higher, but we're about to find out. So James.
Yes, sir.
Why don't you give us your final thoughts? And on a scale of 1 to 5, how many dead Mr. Felchers do you give this episode?
I'm actually in complete agreement with you. This is a 3.
Okay.
I like this episode.
And you can't really put your finger on why
I like
Not
it.
Really. I mean, yeah, it's just, it's like you like it, but there's so many problems with it. It's like, why do I like this so much,
Yeah. I think, so here's the thing. I think, what's the best way to put this? I think it would have worked really well. So I think Bad Girls and this episode would have worked better had they been one episode.
Or are you saying like a to be continued even type deal, or?
No, because honestly, this was kind of like a to be continued type of deal.
Yeah, it really was.
Like this really could be considered Bad Girls Part 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I think if you had taken out elements of Bad Girls that we didn't care for, and elements of this episode that we didn't care for, and combined the better parts of the two episodes into one episode, I think it would have been a much more effective episode as a whole. Um, Ironically enough, I would put this episode on the must-watch list
Really?
of episodes to show people of
Well,
Buffy.
I guess you kind of have to.
Exactly, because
because the way this sets up the the end of this season, you kind of have to, yeah.
right. So, but yeah, it's not it. I can't elevate it past a 3. There like we talked about, and like you said in your review, you've got the huge leap in the mayor and Mr. Trick making the leap that a slayer must have killed Deputy Allen because they found wood in the wound. Okay. You've got Buffy's leap that Deputy Mayor Allen must have been in that alley trying to find them for some reason, and the proof thereof being or proof of that leap being that he had empty file sleeves in his filing cabinet. Like, I'm sorry, no. And also, like you said, and we talked about at the beginning, Faith just wasn't utilized enough up until this point to to make us as an audience care, and that goes for Bad Girls too. Like, but I think more so in this episode because this is clearly the heel turn episode for Faith.
Yeah.
Like, she went to the mayor. She's like, "Oh, you got a job. I'm in." She's clearly made that heel turn.
She just hit Hogan in the back with a steel folding chair.
Yes.
Yep.
But I don't feel like she's been utilized enough up to this point for us as the viewing audience to care. Us as a viewing audience, in viewing this retrospectively, yes, we care.
Oh yeah.
Someone like Darlene, who is going through this as a first-time watcher, why would she care? She doesn't care.
Yeah, they didn't give her enough to care.
Right. And honestly, she shouldn't care because exactly, at first-time viewer, you're not given enough to care. So yeah, this is a 3. Again, ironically, it does go on the must-see list. And if I was flipping through channels and saw that Buffy was on and it was this episode, I would watch it.
Oh yeah, because there's enough in it to where it's enjoyable.
Right.
But it's definitely a mediocre episode.
Yeah. But yeah, those are my final thoughts and my rating.
All right then. James.
Yes, sir.
Can you do me a favor?
Sure. What's up?
Could you explain to our fine listeners out there, or I should say, and or watchers, because can also be watched, where can they find us on that great big World Wide Web, and how can they communicate with us?
Well, first and foremost, I would suggest going to buffyrevisited.com.
Okay.
Because there you're going to find 3 links. The first is going to be our email address, buffyrevisited@gmail.com, where just like our friend RK did, you can email us your thoughts about the podcast and the shows and all that sort of thing. The other link is going to be to our Facebook page, where you will be able to send us messages on Messenger and or leave comments on any of our numerous posts there. The third link is going to be to our YouTube channel, where you can view the video version of the very podcast that you may be listening to right now.
Okay.
And there you will also be able to leave us comments. And we love to interact with the comments. We will interact with the comments on Facebook and YouTube. Primarily, though, you're going to want to be looking for your responses to your comments on the actual podcast itself.
Yeah.
Because we do
That's
love
both get together and discuss it.
That's where we both get together and discuss it. That's where we prefer to discuss it and address your comments or opinions or concerns or thoughts. As I said at the beginning of the episode, it's more enjoyable for us that way, because we get to interact with it, and we get to discuss it, and we get to kind of delve back into previous episodes, and bring up things we might not have brought up then, or discuss things we might not have discussed then. And we think it's more enjoyable for you, honestly, if you leave us a comment. Obviously, you want some sort of interaction from that comment, and it's probably going to be our thoughts or opinions on whatever it is you commented or emailed. So yeah, we're going to address it here so that you can get the full effect of that, because honestly, Jeremy and I aren't Jeremy and I if we just leave you a comment in response or
Exactly.
send you an email back.
Right.
It's going to be
it's more fun this way.
It's going to be more fruitful for us and for you if we respond to it this way. So
Let's say who doesn't want a shout out? Who doesn't want a little shout out in a discussion on a podcast that they actually like?
Right, exactly.
You take the time to, if you take the time to write us to, and however you do it, we're going to take the time to acknowledge it and talk about it.
Right. And especially when those comments can lead to fruitful discussion, like RK's comment about thinking Buffy's the worst character of the show, or
not being all that wrong.
Right.
Not being all that off base.
Right. Or
definitely an argument to be made that he is correct there.
Right. Or the person that commented that they don't understand, all the hate that we give Xander. Right. That honestly caused me to kind of be a little introspective and reflective about, well, why do I hate Xander so much?
Yeah.
And like we talked about, yes, it's partially because he's Joss's insert character and Joss is a piece of shit, but also because, looking at it in
shades of ourselves.
Right. We see shades of ourselves in that guy. And that's no longer acceptable to us, 20 plus years later.
Yeah. Only amongst ourselves and in private.
Right. And then also the comment about that someone left about not caring about Faith, so far.
That was
like that really made me sit back and be like, okay, like why do I care so much about Faith? Why have I been so adamant that they're not using Faith enough? And it turns out that that's why I've been so adamant, because, like we said, because this turn doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Because they haven't used Faith enough. And really, my love of Faith and Faith's heel turn meaning anything is completely clouded by retrospective opinions of the show and overall. And really, I should be looking at it to an extent as a first-time viewer.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So yeah, 100%. We see every comment, we read every comment, we will discuss every comment, and please believe that your comments can lead to more thoughtful, reflective, and introspective thoughts about the show from us. So
yeah,
that's all I have to say.
Yeah, and I want to throw something out there to everyone. Obviously the show is on YouTube, and obviously it is in audio format as well on Stitcher, your Spotify or Stitcher, blah, blah, blah. It's recently come to my attention that there may be an issue with our show on iTunes. I'm getting conflicting deals here. So if anyone's out there, I do not have, like, I don't have an iPhone. I don't deal with Apple at all, Apple products. So if anybody out there who does, and you are listening to our show on iTunes or what have you, let us know. Or even if you're not, and you want to do a search, see if you can find us on iTunes. Like I said, I'm getting conflicting reports about our show on iTunes. So, but I want to know for sure so that I can remedy that if need be. And because like I said, you can find us on all your other major platforms. Your Stitcher, Spotify, Google, yada yada. So, but I want to make sure for our Apple folks out there that if you're wanting to hear us on iTunes and you're not being able to find us, which I'm hearing from some people, and some people I'm hearing the opposite, then let us know, please. I would greatly appreciate that. And that's all.
Beautiful.
So, James, do you have any closing thoughts or things to express?
No, sir. No, sir.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us again this week. As always, everyone, we look forward to seeing you next week, where we will be getting into Season 3, Episode 16, Doppelgangland. And boy, do I like this episode. I'm just, spoiler. But anyway, with that being said, I have been one of your hosts. I am Jeremy.
I'm your other host, James.
Ta-ta.